Hi, this is Richard Morris, Senior Consultant with the Professional Services Group and the Architect of the Symphony Framework. This short video demonstrates how the Symphony Framework can help you manage visual states within a WPF application. Our first task is going to be to create a brand new project in Visual Studio. So we'll create a new Synergy.net WPF application project and we'll give it a name of Visual State Example. The project creation wizard will run and we'll get our basic WPF application created. Within the project we're going to create a new folder and we're going to call that folder View. This folder is going to hold our UI elements. So within this folder we're going to create a new user control and we'll give the control a name of Welcome. This will be a simple little welcome screen, although we're not going to add any code just yet. We'll now add a second user control. And this control we'll call Menu. And again, no code added just yet, but it's going to provide some menu options to the user. Now we'll add a third user control and we'll call it Show Green, which is simply going to be a green background control. No code added just yet. And then we'll add a fourth control. We'll call that Show Blue. And the program's going to be able to navigate between all these user controls. Now we've created our UI components, the next step is to reference the Symphony framework. The location of the Symphony assemblies will depend entirely on how you've installed the Symphony framework. Once referenced, we're going to create a new folder called View Model, and inside here we'll create a new class file which will be our view model file. And we'll call it vm.dbc. Our first task here is to import the required Symphony Framework namespaces. And because it's a view model, we'll import the Symphony Conductor View Model namespace. And then the class will extend the base view model contained within that namespace. By doing so, our application gains a number of capabilities, including state management. We'll create a constructor. The constructor will accept a single argument which will be a System Windows Framework element, which means we can inject our view into this view model and we'll pass that view onto the base view model. Now we've created the view model, we can begin to create or add code to the user interface elements. First one we'll look at is the menu. The menu is simply going to have a couple of buttons on that allow us to navigate to the blue screen and the green screen. We'll do this by creating a stack panel in the middle of our menu control. Within here, we'll just add a quick label, just giving an indication to the user what they can do. And we'll position it in the middle of our stack panel. Now we can add a button. The content simply defines what you'll visually see on the button, but the command is what will actually be executed when you click the button. Now we can data bind to our elements within our view model, and the base view model within the Symphony Conductor View Model namespace provides a command called Navigate State. And the Navigate State command allows you to navigate to a named state. So we use the command parameter to define which state we wish to navigate to. And we'll show you later how to define those states. So in this example, the state is going to be called Show Blue State. We're now going to add a second button. Again, the content simply shows what is displayed on the button. It's going to execute the same Navigate State command that's defined in the Symphony Framework base view model class. But this time the command parameter is going to be Show Green State. So we'll navigate to a different visual state. Now we've created the code for the menu, we'll now move to the Show Blue user control. This control is simply going to have a background of blue, but on it we're going to create a button that will allow us to navigate back to the menu. And again, the Symphony Framework base view model exposes a command that we can bind to and that command is called quit state. And quit state simply terminates the current state and takes you back to the previous state defined within your visual state groups. We'll size the button, and thus it'll appear in the middle of the form. Now we're going to do exactly the same for the show green button. Now we'll complete the code required for the welcome control. In here we'll simply use a stack panel so we can position things within the center of the form. And we'll add a label. The label is simply going to say welcome. And now we need to add a button. The button is going to be very similar to the green control and the blue control buttons, and it's simply going to quit the current state using the quit state command that's built into the Symfony Framework base view model. So we can simply data bind to the quit state command property. Okay, so now we've created the visual controls and how they're going to look, we need to pull them all together on our main window. To do this, first of all, we need to be able to reference them. So we'll create an XML namespace, we'll call it UI, and we'll reference the VisualStateExample.view namespace. Now each user control is going to be added to this window, but we're going to create each one within a border, and we're going to name the border. In this example, we're calling it Blue View, and we're giving it an opacity of 0. This means that the border and anything it contains will not appear on the visual screen, which is why you don't see it in the designer above. We're going to create one of these for each of the 4 controls that we've created. So the second one, again, it's a border. We're going to give it a name of Green View, and again, opacity of 0 so we don't see it. And we're simply referencing each user control from the UI namespace that we've declared at the top of this window. This menu view is going to contain our menu user control. And the final border is going to be the welcome view, which will contain our welcome user control. It doesn't matter what order you place these borders and these controls within your view or your main window. Now we're actually going to build up the visual states. To do this, we'll go into XML view so we've got more real estate. We're going to implement the Visual State Manager, which will allow us to define a number of states that we can navigate or move between. And the Symfony framework simplifies the movement or navigation between these states. So we're going to create a visual state group, and we'll call it Application States. The name of the visual state group is not important to the Symfony framework. Now we're going to create a visual state. This is a named entity or a named way of showing an appearance of your application. The name of this is very important. This is the name that you'll reference within your view model to be able to navigate between the visual states. The order of these visual states is very important as well. The first one will always be considered the base state. We've called our base state, or the first visual state, menu entry state. Within here, we're going to create a storyboard. And the storyboard simply allows us to show what should and should not be visible within this visual state called menu entry state. The first thing we're going to do is hide everything. Now remember the borders below, we gave them names. In the storyboard, what we're doing here is saying the target name Blue View, which is the border below, and the property opacity we're going to give it, for a duration of 0, a value of 0, or we're going to change it to 0. Even though it's 0 further down so we don't see it, we need to ensure that for this menu entry visual state we don't see the blue view border. There's actually 3 elements that we have to set for this blue view border. The first is the opacity. The second is going to be the is enabled. So this means you can't see it, you can't click to it, and you can't focus it. And because this is a Boolean, we're going to set it to a key time value of 0 and give it a value of false. And then the third element that we need to set, or the third property we need to set, which is an int32 value. Again, on the blue view target, the storyboard target property this time is going to be the panel.zIndex. These 3 settings hide it, prevent focus, and prevent allowing to tab to it. So now we've been able to hide the blue view. And for this menu entry state, we need to hide not only the blue view, but the green view. That's the name of the border that contains the show green user control below. So it really is just a case of copy the code and change the target name to green. We also need, in the menu entry state, to hide the welcome view. So again, we'll copy the code and change the target names. And the final piece of the puzzle for the menu entry state is to actually display the menu view. So this visual state now defines all the other elements invisible and the menu element visible. So we set the opacity to 1, enabled true, and the z-index to 1. Now we've completed the menu entry state, we now need to replicate this code for the other states that we want to define within our window. Our next state is going to be called show blue state, and this state is going to hide the menu, hide the green, hide the welcome, but display the blue view, or the border called blue view, which contains our blue window. And again, we need to replicate this for the green and for the welcome user controls. So the show green state again hides the menu, blue and welcome borders and the controls contained within them, but displays the green. And the show welcome state shows the welcome screen or the welcome user control. All we now need to do is to data bind our view model to our view. We can do this by binding to the data context a new instance of our view model. Remember, we inject the view into the view model. This is so the Symfony framework can interrogate the view and work out what visual states are available. But we also want to show the welcome screen first, not the menu, and the menu was defined as the first visual state. And we can do that by using the move to state method within the view model, and we'll name the state show welcome state. So we should see the welcome screen before the menu. All that remains then is to run the application, which brings up the window. And as you can see, we've got our welcome screen. When we click the button, we're cancelling that visual state. We can click the other buttons and we can move to and fro between the states. So there's a quick example demonstrating how Symfony framework allows you to manage visual